who want to do the right thing. So, they feel the same way, I'm sure. There are a lot of things we didn't like how we played tonight. We didn't play our brand of basketball at all, and it wasn't something that I felt was in this group's mindset right now. But we did have a night like that. The great thing about this league is that you get to rectify that in 2 days, or attempt to rectify that in 2 days.
Well, Declan, I was going to praise the Wolves for that great defensive performance Saturday night. Utah Jazz, a good team.
Good team.
They go into Utah. They beat them. Said to yourself, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Wolves are 2-0. Defensively, they're engaged. They're playing pretty well. They're playing smart basketball.
It's remarkable.
Unfortunately, then we got last night's game. And I know that the Lakers are world champions. And I know that Karl-Anthony Towns, and we'll talk about this in a second, was out. But you lost by 36.
Yeah.
Say this. I will say this for Minnesota sports teams that committed themselves to losing Friday through Sunday. When they did lose, they lost spectacularly. Like the Vikings give up 52. Hey, 52. The most since what, 1963. The Wolves, I think they trailed by, I want to say by as many as 42 at times last night. And they go down and lose by 36. They come back as Saunders was talking about there. You just heard the soundbite. Ryan said that they play the Clippers on Tuesday night then in Los Angeles before they return home to play a couple of games. 2-1 now. All right, so let's start off with Towns. Don't know if you saw this in the fourth quarter of Saturday's game, but he sustained a dislocated left wrist. Now, that's the same wrist that he fractured last year, and I think he missed the last 12 games before the pandemic shut things down. He is expected to be evaluated, I think, now on a week-to-week basis. It will not require surgery. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's no timetable on this. We don't know when he's coming back. Naz Reid is a backup. I think he's a nice backup, but he is a backup. But there's not a lot of choices to replace what is clearly your best player. And let's see what the box score showed us last night, Declan, because I'd like to review the box score from last night's game. D'Angelo Russell, he played 21 minutes in this game, 2 for 7 from the field, attempted 1 3-pointer he missed, 4 points, minus 31. Oof. Yeah, this is going to be so the good news is that you're not going to play a team like LeBron and the Lakers on a regular basis. The bad news is that without Cat in there, it's going to be difficult. My guess is he's out for probably a couple weeks or so. So let's talk about the good. All right.
Thank you.
Let's get to the good, because I
thought you were going to harp on the negative.
Nope. Awful last night. Nothing good.
Okay.
I got some notes here.
All right.
Let's start with this one. Jarrett Culver.
Yes.
Okay. So it's one thing to read stories and hear about how a guy who is a really hard worker and who could play defense basically worked on a shot and tried to improve it. Because like you've seen a ton of stories like that or heard that.
Yep.
And you know what? It's always like, okay, yeah, let's see it. Saturday night against the Jazz, we saw it. 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3-point range, 14 points, 6 boards. If Jarrett Culver has turned a corner as far as what he can give you offensively, and I'm not saying it's always going to be great, but he looked lost in 2019-20.
Yeah, it's safe to say.
Saturday night, I think he did not look lost. If Jarrett Culver has turned that corner, that is a substantial improvement for this team, because the one thing that we know that he's going to bring, if he can play and shoot a smidge, is really good defense.
Yeah, he's been the most impressive player in my opinion through the first those first 2 wins. I won't count what happened against the Lakers, but through the first 2 wins, he was.
Unfortunately, you have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was.
But in terms of the most positive takeaways I had through the first 2 games, it wasn't that Cat and D'Lo were together. It was that Jarrett Culver looked amazing. He was hitting his shots. We know he's a good defensive player. Last year, he started to turn a corner over the last 15, 20 games where his shot started to fall a little bit more from behind the arc. That's great, but it was also, basically garbage time, meaningless basketball games. But if Jarrett Culver has arrived, I mean, you're talking about a guy who, if he brings that energy, can be a possible sixth man of the year. And he's been coming off the bench so far this season. I've been very impressed. I think he is the most impressive player the Wolves have had through the first 3 games.
Who is next on your list?
Anthony Edwards. I mean, Anthony Edwards is awesome.
He was great on Saturday.
Yeah.
18 points on Saturday, 8 for 12
his
from the
energy
field.
and his demeanor too. Obviously, the Wiggins comparisons I think can already stop. I think it's a hard stop on that. I don't know if he's a superstar, but I do know he's a dynamic player who's hungry and wants the basketball. Jim Pete was talking about that too. I mean, you can tell that when he's in the game, he wants the basketball. He says, this is my team. I'm going to drive things. I want to do it. That's why I wanted to see last night, them kind of unleash Anthony Edwards. Now, the game got so out of hand, basically, from the opening tip-off. I think it was hard to gauge what Anthony Edwards could really bring to that game from a positive standpoint. But
15 points last night.
Yeah, and his box score was a little. It didn't tell the full story, really, of what he did last night. I know Dane Moore was talking about that on Twitter, who is a friend of the show. And I think Jarrett Culver and Anthony Edwards are the 2 guys you have to be impressed with. And then after that would be Josh Okogie, too. And Okogie left with cramps in the Lakers game.
That did not look like a cramp to me.
Didn't look like a cramp to me either.
The way he went down and grabbed his leg, it looked like he twisted it odd or something.
Sure.
I didn't know what it was,
scary.
but it didn't look like a cramp.
Yeah, I agreed. It looked bad.
I guess the thing that I liked against the Jazz as well is the fact that in that game, there seemed to be a real commitment to playing defense, which we did not see nearly enough of last year, and that they've got scoring now. Like they've got Ant can score, Culver can score a bit, right? D'Lo for sure, Beasley. They now, if healthy, and that of course means the cat has to play. If healthy, they now have some options there too. And they've got depth now.
Right.
Potentially. But I really liked against the Jazz, I really liked the fact that in that game, we saw a commitment to the defensive end of the ball, which if you go back to 2019-20, how often did you see that?
Yeah, you didn't
It felt
see it
like
all.
almost never. And I mean, Cat was engaged too, defensively. And that's a huge step up.
I think that's what was most impressive is, look, this team's going to try 3-pointers. I don't know if they have the personnel to do that. I don't know if they can be the Rockets Warriors, from earlier parts of this decade, just attempting 43s and making 20 of them. I don't know if they can do that. However, they're still going to stick to that formula on offense, and they'll try to get down low in the paint. Whatever.
They've got to work. You've got to work constantly, though.
But if there's any chance for them to be successful, it's on the defensive side of the ball. If they can at least be a competent team on the defensive side of the ball, we're not asking them to be, Boston Celtics with KG and those guys. We're just asking them to be a legitimate, competent defense. Can they have the pieces to be competent on D?
Culver and Okogie are going to play D and play it well.
Yep.
That's the one thing I really like. Those two are going to, if nothing else, as an opponent, make your life hell.
I agree.
Like they're going to be in your face constantly. But it feels like now that there's also other players on this roster along for that ride, which we didn't see. What do you do at power forward?
I got your
Layman's
answer.
a mess.
I got your answer.
Hernan Gomez I think he's not good. I think he's just flat out not that good.
He's a good bench guy, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what do you do if you get into rotations that you like? Who's your starter at power forward?
Well, who I'd want to see there eventually, and he finally made his debut yesterday, was Jade McDaniels. So Jade McDaniels was the 28th overall pick in this last year's draft. Now, he went to Washington. He had a very up and down year with the Huskies. He got in some very big foul trouble and made, I think, a lot of mental mistakes, and it kind of plummeted his draft stock because a lot of people thought going into the last college basketball season that this guy was going to be a lottery pick. And because of his demeanor and because of some foul trouble, he didn't really have the best year at Washington, but was a consensus top 10 guy for coming out of high school. And he made his debut last night, and you can make a case in very limited action in 8 minutes. He was the only productive player the Wolves had. I want to see them use this kid. And he's a power forward. He's 6'8". And by the way, and I want someone to explain this to me.
Yeah.
The position groups in the NBA are just no longer what they used. Like at least the starting lineup, who you have out there.
It doesn't matter
anymore.
This is true.
It's remarkable to me, and I don't really understand that. So I know there's matchups that go into that. Some guys are going to have a bigger, taller, lineup. So you have to figure out how to match that. Some guys can just have an all small ball team. But I would like to see Jade McDaniels be that guy. Jake Layman's a mess right now. I mean, he has been the most
I don't think he's a starter
player. Yeah, he's not.
I just don't think he's a starter.
He's not. And look, and Jade McDaniels was going to be eased into this. He's only played those 8 minutes, right, in 3 games so far. So I'm not asking when they play the Clippers.
Yeah,
I believe this evening, right? On Monday evening,
Tuesday.
On Tuesday evening when they go out there next. That McDaniels is starting and playing 28 minutes a night. But I do think that would be the guy that you unleash. A lot of people, even draft grade, said this was one of the biggest, not steals, but high upside late first round picks of the draft because of how hard he fell and because of his hype. And I think the hype is real. Yeah, no, go with it. I think he'd be the guy that you would want to be there.
I sort of like that one.
Not Jake Layman.
But sports are, and basketball especially, are becoming basically positionless. Like more and more, it's positionless sports.
Right.
So I don't think that you have to be, and teams certainly aren't wedded to what we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
I think that's changed dramatically, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, I don't mind that. Hernan Gomez and Layman to me aren't starters. They aren't starters, and I don't know at this point in time exactly with the Wolves as they're currently constructed. I don't know what they bring.
Right.
Like I would prefer to go in your direction and take a chance on something that might work as opposed to, because it's not like this is some playoff established team, right?
I mean, if Layman and Hernan Gomez, at least just last night, they got combined 28 minutes. Layman 15, Hernan Gomez 13, and then Jade McDaniels 8. I would much rather see McDaniels get half of those minutes and just delegate the other half to the other 2.
Can I give you one guy that Phil liked that I think 3 games in, I think we've seen what we've seen, and I think it's all we're going to see? Ed Davis.
Oh, Ed Davis.
Poor Ed Davis.
Yeah.
He might be a great locker room guy.
That's what he is.
He might be a really good guy. I have no idea. But as Jim Pete so eloquently said on the FSN telecast last night, he's a foul machine. He just gets in and fouls guys. Yeah. I don't think that there's much hope there of playing. Reed, I think, can become a player.
Yeah, he's fun.
And I think that Naz has his role. He's not Cat, so he shouldn't be starting. But I think he definitely has his role. But Ed, I think he might be a real solid veteran glue guy, but I don't think he can play much, unfortunately. So
yeah, that part is too bad.
And by the way,
yep.
Do we have any update? Because each time I tweet about the Wolves during the course of a game, I get 1,000 responses. FSN to YouTube do we have an update?
No, nothing.
Is there anything going on?
No, Sinclair can kick rocks.
I feel bad for, but is it's Sinclair. It's the, so Sinclair charges too much for YouTube TV to carry it, right?
Yep.
But I mean, at some point in time, they got to solve this.
I agree.
I can't sit here and think that the Wolves, and by extension, in a couple of weeks, the Wild and the Twin, I can't think that they're going to sit here and be like, that's fine.
Right. I agree. And I think, I mean, number one, I have been watching the games through certain websites that I just won't say anymore there. But
watch out for those bugs.
I know. I think the last point too, and just kind of wrapping this up, is if Cat's going to be out, D'Angelo, you got to step up, brother. Like 21 minutes and the line you had is completely unacceptable. Like I'm not going to ask it. Like I would like to see Anthony Edwards get unlocked and play 35 minutes and be that guy.
He was lost last night.
But D'Angelo, like you can't take the game off, man.
Tuesday night, because they'll point to the back-to-back.
Yeah.
And the win on Saturday against the Jazz, they're going to point to that.
Yep, I agree.
So and if I'm not mistaken, while the Wolves got waxed by 36 last night in the same building in the afternoon, didn't the Clippers lose by 50 to the Mavericks?
Yes.
I think that they lost by 50. So what we need to see from D'Lo on Tuesday night is a huge improvement. Because my guess is Cat's out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say.
All right, we're done. We'll be back tomorrow, I believe, with more Mackey and Judd. In fact, we will be back. Chip Scoggins, ordinarily my Conduits of Trouble partner. He will join me on Mackey and Judd. Purple Daily this week is going to be largely a look back with yours truly, Declan, and Murph on the 2010 Vikings. Correct, Declan?
That is correct.
We will talk to you soon.